Hi, I'm Stuart Bull and welcome to lesson number 6 in the Pentatonic series. Please check out guitarstarclothing.co.uk. Check out the t-shirts there, it helps me, helps support the channel. And if you would like a personal Skype lesson, please email me at stuartbull5150@gmail.com. We'll figure something out. Okay, so if you've been watching all the lessons up to now, we've only been dealing with 4 notes, and that has been these 2 resolutions, as I like to call them: C to A, G to E. But that's only 4 notes of the pentatonic scale. And the reason that we've done this is so that we can start to use the scale in a more musical way. These resolutions, they kind of break it up and make things sound, excuse me. And we've been using those 4 notes to try and build some nice musical phrases, and also to kind of break away from what's known as position 1, or box 1 as some people call it, and be able to move up the neck across all the strings. But the pentatonic scale has 5 notes, okay, so we can reveal all those notes now, which is A, C, D, E, G, and then back to A. And we'll get into the positions later on. The reason that we're learning it in this fashion is so that we can actually start to move around the neck and use it more musically instead of getting stuck inside those boxes, although there is a lot of value in that as well. Okay, so what is this last note? Well, in the key of A minor, it is a D note. And so what I'm going to put to you now is this: if we take the first resolution, the first 2 notes that we looked at was C to A, minor third to the root. And the second resolution that we looked at is minor third to the root in a different key, but in this case I'm going to call it 7th to 5th. But none of that really matters. All that matters is these 4 notes exist inside the A minor pentatonic scale. And I'll show you how we can use this to work with other keys and other positions later on. But for now, if we take these first 2 notes, this first resolution, and then move on the same string, on the high E string, and put this second resolution being G to E up on the high E, 15, high E to 12. If we actually look right in between those 2 resolutions, there is the final note, or the final note we're looking at, of the pentatonic scale, which is D. So now you have. Now, the value of this is one that we can break these phrases up using this D note instead of just running up and down the scale. When I first learned the scale, when a lot of people learn the scale, they'll tend to learn a box position, and they really will find it difficult to make some music. So the advantage of this D note being right in between these 2 resolutions is we can do a lot of licks similar to what we've done in previous lessons, where we'll play which is just basically the first resolution played on 1 string, second resolution played on 1 string, and then the first resolution played on 2 strings. Well, what we can do now is say, okay, so because this D note sits nicely between these 2 resolutions, we can just basically pop it in the middle of them when we're playing our licks. So what would be a classic example of that? So instead of going like I just did, we can play the first one, play the D, second one, third one again. And there's no rules here, you can just make them up as you please, but here we have the lick. And I think that's starting to sound a little bit better than, although that does sound pretty good as well, but this is just another way of approaching it. Okay, so let's say for example we didn't want to play those notes kind of in a row, and when I say a row I mean just straight down. What we could do is play the first one C to A, second one up E to G, then put in our D, and then play our final resolution. So there you go. Or we could do that same idea but put the D in the middle again. And as we start to add a little bit of flair and a little bit of style to this, it starts to come alive. Little variation there, but I'm doing a blues bend on the first note. Or we could bend this D note up to an E, and the great thing about this is as long as we hit the E and don't stay on the D too long, even that kind of works. But this is where this starts to sound really good. Let's say we decided to do the same resolution further down the scale. We could put that D in again in between the two resolutions. And you can start to do these pretty much anywhere. Another place, really good place, would be if we went 12 to 15 on the high E. There's our first resolution, the E to the G, and our second one, the C to the A. Fairly standard kind of sound, but now we could put this D note on the 15B in between them. Okay, if we were to take that same idea and move it down, so now we have 15 to 12 on the high E, but we have 13 to 10 on the B. Now we can use this D note, okay, which is on the 10 high E, and we would have something like this. So what I'm doing is I'm playing the first two notes, and instead of going straight to the second resolution, I'm putting the D in the middle of those two notes. Okay, so that's just something you can kind of mess around with and get your own ideas going. But it's basically important to remember that that note is right in the middle of those two resolutions, or in this key, you could look at it like this. It's a tone above the C, and it's a tone below the E. So if we were doing our kind of one string, two string ideas like before, we could say to ourselves, okay, so how can we add that D note in there just to add a little bit of a different flavour? So instead of going like this like we did before, one string, two string, can go one string, slide up, and then do our two-string idea. In just the same way, if we were to take this resolution, the G to E, so basically what we're doing there is we're doing our G to E, using the D as a kind of note in between and then going back to the E, just creating a slightly different colour there, and then go to our first resolution being C to A. And again, very popular blues lick here. We're pulling off from 8B to 5B, second resolution, the G to E. We're about to go to this resolution. We put the D in the middle. So it's always, not always, but it's a good idea to be able to put that note in between those notes. And this is a technique they use in jazz. If you want to go from this note, say for example, to this note, you might go, which basically means this is your first note, this is kind of your second note, and these ones are in between just to add a bit of flavour. But you can definitely hear it. And the same with this. Now, instead of just going straight to the E, you can still hear these. This is the main resolution. And also, just finally, bending that C to a D is great, and bending that D to an E is great if you've got this second two-string idea that we discussed. Uncharted territories there. But anyway, that's the final note of the pentatonic, and that's a way, in my opinion, that you can use it kind of creatively to just sort of break away from just going up the scale and down the scale. So I hope that helps out, and I'll talk to you soon.